on how to review the literature, how to search the literature for our related topic. Okay, since you have already started uh, reviewing the literature from the beginning of the research, I think, okay, most of you have searched for the internet or electronic content that have been presented on the internet. Okay, some of you have might review the books, some of you have might review the article or anything like that. Okay, you might have review certain content on the on internet or soft copy or in terms of hard copy or any mechanism you might have searched so that you have come up with the topic or the research idea. Yes. So while searching the topic, okay, while searching the topic, the task that you have performed, it's also a type of literature review. You are going to review the literature, and that literature will motivate you, or you are going to generate certain idea from that literature, okay, or the number of literature that we have searched. So literature review, to demonstrate skill in the library research, to show the command of the subject area and problem understand of the problem. Okay, so review of the literature introduced and provides example of range of technique that can be used to analyze idea, find relationship between the different ideas, and understand the nature and use of argument in the research. So when you have reviewed the literature, okay, when you review the literature, it provides a range of example that has been used, um, technique, okay, range of technique, analysis process, method, procedure, theoretical aspect, or any other research method that has been applied on that particular field or area. How to analyze the people idea that constitute the body of knowledge on the topic of your research. Okay, you get some insight how to analyze the people idea that constitutes the body of knowledge, means the knowledge that has been explored by that literature. You are going to analyze that part. Okay, that also can be generated by reviewing the literature. And moving on the literature review, mostly the literature review that are performed. Okay, this is not limited to just these three, but these are mostly used review process on literature. Okay, uh, one is the thematic review, another is theoretical review, and another is the empirical review. Okay, moving on to the thematic review, you have collected the number of papers. Suppose you have collected the 10 article related to your topic, 10 article related to your topic. So all 10 article you do not read from top to bottom. Yes, all 10 article you do not, or you do not practice to read from top to bottom. If you have duration of time, you can read that also, but how to make that literature review efficient? Okay, what you are sourcing, you need to find that thing, okay, relating to your ideas also topic. So you have already come up with a research topic in this context. Okay, you have already come up with a research topic by reviewing the different article, different journal, or so on. Now you are focusing on one specific topic, so you need to collect the literature relating to that specific topic. Okay, so while collecting the literature with your topic, you have collected the 10 literature. Okay, it might be the article, journal, or thesis or dissertation, any kind of literature it might be. Okay, it might be the electronic medium, electronic copy, or it might be the hard copy or something like that. It can be any. So while reviewing that 10 literature, okay, while reviewing that 10 literature, if you go from top to bottom to all literature, okay, all literature, then it takes duration of time. It takes duration of time. So what you need to do, you need to classify the literature. Okay, you need to classify the literature, because if that is article of 7 to 10 page, you can read that part. But if it's the thesis or dissertation, you have collected two to or a number of thesis or dissertation more than 2 or 5, then it takes a lot of duration of time. Within this allocated period of time, it is difficult to review that literature, again get some insight of the idea, and so on. So you need to classify the literature. While classifying the literature, what you do, you need to think on your mind that what you need to read, or what you need from that literature. Okay, based on your title or topic, the keyword that are implemented to your research. Okay, the keyword that will be implemented to your research, based on that keyword also you can search. Okay, while searching that keyword, when you look down to the literature, you can simply review the literature from theme of the research. Theme of the research means you are going to read the abstract, conclusion. Okay, abstract and conclusion will give you overall theme of the research. So if you get certain idea, okay, this paper is highly related to my research, then you can review it fully. Okay, now you can review that fully, but you just review that thematically. What is the main objective of the research? You understand that part. Okay, and while reviewing the uh, literature thematically, you might see certain theoretical aspect on that literature. Okay, if there is some theoretical aspects, you separate that paper for the theoretical level. If certain theoretical theories or certain statement or certain proof or certain hypotheses that are implicable for your research, if you think, then you separate that literature for your theoretical review and you review it theoretically. Okay, and empirical review, if the research, okay, while searching the research literature, you think that the findings of that literature, okay, the findings of that literature are part of your research. Suppose you are going to do the comparative study, or suppose you are going to do certain research that will increase the certain performance level of that particular research. If you work on the finding of the research, okay, you need to review the research empirically, okay, based on the finding and observation of that research that will work as the basis for your research. Okay, these are the basically three types of review. You can perform combinedly. Okay, but main purpose is to reduce the time to read from top to bottom. Okay, to read from top to bottom. If you need, you should read, but while the literature that you have collected, all no need to read from top to bottom. Okay, no need to read from top to bottom. So you can use certain technique from this aspect also. Okay, so that is the thing. And any questions on this part? No, it simply indicate the process or something like that. Okay, how to reduce the time to review the literature, just for that part. Okay, while selecting the title, you might have collected the some literature related to that title. Yes, so you might know in which aspect my research is related. Okay, and what are the content that I can take references from the previous literature. Okay, so you might have certain idea for that also, because while writing or taking the references from the other literature, okay, other literature, which content need to be added to your research, which content is not needed for your research. Okay, you need to classify that thing. Okay, you are going to review the literature critically. Now we'll come basically. Okay, but this is the generic review of literature you can do. Okay, quality of literature review, breadth, the coverage. Okay, how much you are going to cover, that will determine by your research topic or research question that you have formulated and objective that you have set at the beginning of the research. Depth, analytical power, and creativity means on which level you are going to explore the knowledge. Okay, if it's just the exploratory nature, then or if it's the descriptive nature, or if it is the explanatory nature. Okay, in what depth you are going to analyze your research or review that literature. Rigor and consistency. Okay, the content that is related to your research should be of similar content. Clarity, that you can understand. Okay, the literature that you have reviewed should be clear enough to give some idea regarding your research process and research method. Okay, effective analysis and synthesis. Okay, while you review the literature, you need to apply some effective analysis and synthesis process, so that the only important data, important fact, important result, important theory, important measure are extracted from that literature and used on your research. Okay, so when you review the literature, this thing need to be kept in mind while reviewing the literature. Okay, if you read the literature, you should set your boundary. Okay, set your boundary. What is the scope or area of your research topic, because while you search for the literature, you might obtain the tremendous amount of content on the internet, or tremendous amount of content on the article, journal, newspaper, or so on. So you have to limit at certain context. Okay, this is the overall scope of my research. You need to clarify. So when you review the literature, or when you complete your literature, sorry, complete your research and present the content to others, the findings to others, then other might have certain questions regarding your research. Okay, other might have certain curiosity about your research. If they ask certain questions to you regarding your research, then you need to able to classify this question is within my scope and this question is not within my scope. You need to be clear on that part. Yes, because while you obtain the certain questionnaire from other, questions rises from other, if you are confused, if you are not clear about your scope, a boundary, then you might answer the question deliberately and it might answer in incorrect way. Okay, or you cannot provide any convincing argument for that particular set of question. So you need to be clear on your boundary, what you have done in your research and what you have not done in your research, what is the scope of your research and what is not your scope of the research. You need to be clear. Okay, so for that also you have to review the literature very carefully. Reading the literature critically, however, there is no universal all aspect approach of critical review. So in every process that we take on the research, okay, every process that we take on the research, there is no any specific pathway that can be followed to obtain the better result, because each piece of research is unique, and that uniqueness will arises from the variety of the method or technique that has been implemented on the research. Okay, so following the one single path or single method to obtain the any specific outcome of the research is not always applicable in this context. Okay, so based on your suitability, you can use or review the literature critically. Okay, yeah, some might understand the content of the literature with one or two readings, or from the one or two research paper, 2-3 research papers. Some might not understand from 10 to 20 papers. Okay, so there are different contexts of reviewing the literature. Okay, based on the content, based on the topic, based on the research question that you have formulated, based on the research objective, that will guide the number of literature. Okay, how you understand the literature and so on. There are different factors. Okay, what approach will be useful depend on the individual researcher style or interest. Okay, that is fully dependent on researcher style and interest. For example, people use different color of marker to point out the good logic. That is just the example. Okay, while reviewing the literature or reading literature, some might note the content of the literature in on some notebook. Some might color that content on that literature or something like that. Okay, they can use while reading the literature critically. They can use any method. Okay, based on their style or based on their interest. But there is certain generic process how to read the literature critically. Okay, we'll come to on our next slide, how to review the literature critically. There is some aspect that you can follow for beginners like us. Okay, so an example is you can go through the text. This is just an example because it might not be applicable for your research, or you might not feel it is comfortable to use on your context or research. Okay, you can modify it based on your situation or circumstances. So read the text again, circling any inference indicator if there is any statement that indicate thus, therefore, hence, etc. on that particular literature. We are going to indicate that part. Identify any condition, if, suppose, for example, such as underlying that part, because when you indicate the conclusion, when you indicate a statement, what that literature is trying to say, you will understand. Okay, we are focusing on the different aspect. Okay, we are going to focus from the different aspect. We can review from the different way, but while reviewing the literature critically, means there are certain steps if you follow, then that will generate more knowledge and more understanding to your research topic. Okay, just simply following the generic topic and going from the top to bottom is not a critical reading. Okay, you just read the superficial reading, and based on your understanding you take the references and other methods that has been presented then on that research. Okay, so we are using certain technique so that we can review the literature from different aspect or different dimension. We are seeing the context from the different dimension rather than the researcher point of view that has been presented on that previous research. Identify any conditions. Okay, if, suppose, for example, that has been associated on that literature. Look for the conclusion and stated reason bracket. Then you can see the pattern of writing in the paper. Okay, what the paper is trying to say. Okay, you are just reviewing that overall theme of the research. Okay, while you read the abstract, it might not make you clear. So what you need to do, you need to use some empirical review. Okay, you might go on the findings and the method that has been implemented on that research. Yes, and if that also does not clarify you, then it might need you need to go from top to bottom. If that literature is related for your research topic, okay, you need to first analyze whether that literature is related to your research topic or not. You need to identify that thing by yourself based on the parameter that I have already said to you. Okay, and while reviewing the part, the main objective of the reviewing the literature is to make clarity for your research. Okay, you are making yourself clear regarding how to do your research, or what are the certain contexts that can be implemented for your research. Okay, what are content that can be taken as the references for your research. So you are searching for certain content, you are searching for certain procedure, you are searching for certain analysis method and research method that can be implicable for your research. Okay, that can be implicable for your research. You are searching for that thing which is applicable for your research. So in what way you refer or what way you read that literature, that will define the quality of the content or the references that you have taken. Okay, there may be the several reasons connected in the transitive or that means the direct manner, such as one reason, another reason, or successive reason. Okay, there might be the several reasons which are directly associated. You are going to search for that kind of thing, or the formulae can be used for this purpose. For example, one reason can support to generate one conclusion. Okay, cause and effect relationship, if there is any on that particular literature. This is just an example. Okay, this might not be always the case with the literature that we have searched. The previous formula give us the two different reflection. Okay, the authorized formula the general rules such as providing the different logic or the reason in sequential order to convince the reader and to reach the conclusion. Okay, it's straightforward evidence or logic that has been presented to convince the reader and to reach the conclusion. At the same time, okay, at the same time, the researcher will gain the knowledge on how logic or the reason can be created and how the path can be developed to reach the conclusion. So while reading the conclusion or knowledge that has been explored on the literature, you can get insight of the knowledge. Okay, gain the knowledge on how logic or the reason can be created. Okay, and how the path can be developed to reach the conclusion. So when you write or when you write your research method and executed the research according to your method, you collected the data, analyzed the data, presented the findings and result, discuss on that finding, and you have to write the conclusion. So while writing the conclusion, how can write? You can obtain that knowledge from reviewing the literature. Okay, that it states. So moving on to the research methodology. Okay, research methodology. We are not focusing on this part right now. Okay, you can take just you can review this part, but we'll study in chapter 4. Okay, after this we study the research methodology, where we study about the research philosophy and approach for theory development and other aspects. Okay, that part we will review. You can take the snapshot of this research method that can act as the reference. Okay, so up to this part, if you have any questions. If not, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, any questions up to this part?
No, sir.
If you have any confusion, it will, this slide might clear you somewhat. Okay, and if then also if you have any question, you can ask me. Okay, So basically talking about the source of available literature, or the literature source that have been available, it can be classified into three: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay, so primary focus on the report, thesis, email, conference, proceeding paper. Okay, company report, unpublished manuscript sources, some government publication are the primary source, which intended to use, or which has been collected data from the scratch and prepared the reports or thesis. Okay, basically this kind of resource are the primary research. And moving on to the secondary research. Okay, journal, books, newspapers, some government publications. Okay, so based on this can be classified based on the uh, level of details. Okay, level of details and the increasing time. You have to, as you can see below, you can see the level of detail that you can obtain from the primary research, primary literature, is more than that of the secondary, because you can see, if you review the thesis and if you review the journal of that thesis, okay, the thesis contains the 70 to 80 page or more than that page for that thesis, but when you see the journal for that particular thesis, it might be of 7 to 10 page. Okay, so that journal has only indicated a certain specific pathways that is needed for that journal. Okay, it will comprise the quality of the journal, but if you want to see the detailed explanation for all the content that has been published on that journal, you might want to see the thesis or dissertation that has been done to publish that journal, if any. Okay, so, and when you move the level of increasing time to publish, the primary research that can publish with less duration of time than the secondary, because you need to prepare a journal, it takes certain duration of time. Yes, certain duration of times you need to prepare the books or something like that. So duration of time increases from primary to secondary, but amount of knowledge or the detail decreases from primary to secondary. Okay, this is just the thing. And based on your necessity, okay, based on your necessity, we move on. We basically use the primary, secondary, and some part of tertiary. Okay, while reviewing the abstract or certain citation indexes, we use the tertiary contexts. As when you see the literature on Google Scholar or so on, you can download the indices or you download the references, referencing style and citation. Yes, you can download that thing. So that can act as a tertiary source of literature. Okay, so basically based on your need you can use. So we mostly focus on the journal, because the assist time to the journal is short. Okay, and the content is also short, so you can understand what is necessary for your research. And if you only need more information from that journal, you just move on to the primary. Okay, so reason for reviewing the literature is to conduct the preliminary source of existing material, that is the main part. Okay, to organize the valuable ideas and findings. So we are just focusing here on the findings, method, research that has been published by other researchers. Okay, and we need to gain some certain insight for our research. So what kind of insight you can obtain? You can obtain the insight regarding what you have discussed previously. Do you have any idea what we discussed on previous slide at the last part? Reviewing the literature critically, how it will help us. Did you obtain any idea? Can you tell me? We review the literature. Okay, we review the literature, but what is the advantage of reviewing the literature, or why we are doing this? We are doing to organize the values idea, identify the other research that may be in progress, and the research idea to develop the critical perspective. These are the different things. But what kind of things that are implicable? Okay, that one statement that I have shown on the previous slide. Can you say that? You need to relate the findings. Okay, if you conduct the preliminary research of the existing material, if the content that are used on that literature, if it does not have any relation with your research, then that is the waste of time and waste of duration, or waste of your effort also. Okay, so you need to be focused what kind of literature you need to search and review. Okay, you need to be focused on that part, reviewing all the literature. Okay, you might review the literature which are not related with your research. Okay, that might be the context. So when you review the literature, when you reason, okay, you conduct the primary research, you organize the valuable idea and so on. So what is the result? It result that a certain, as we have discussed previously, how the how to reach to the conclusion that you get the idea from that previous researches. Okay, how to make a chain between your findings, conclusion. You can obtain that idea from the researches. Okay, and certain method also. Suppose you are not clear on the research method of yours, how to write that method, but when you formulate or when you review the method that has been implicable, that has been written on previous literature, and if you think that is mostly applicable for my research, certain content you can take references from that literature, then you have certain idea, okay, I need to write my method in that context, or in that way I need to write my method. That give you insight. Okay, so as much as the literature review, that will increase the quality of your research. Okay, that will increase the overall quality of the research, because you get the idea from the different literature, different resources. Okay, resources that has been published. So if you search for authenticate source of literature, then you get a lot of information for your research. Okay, to organize the valuable ideas and finding, the reason for reviewing the literature is the values and ideas that has been implemented on that particular research. We are going to organize that thing to identify the other research that may be in progress, if there is any other topic. Okay, burning topic, if you are looking for certain burning topic or the research topic that has been highly used in the current context. Okay, to identify that thing also, you need to review the literature. To generate the research idea that you have done already. Yes, to develop the critical perspective, means you are not just reading the literature from top to bottom without putting any justification or judgment on your mind. You need to view that literature from some different aspect. Okay, we'll discuss that part also. Critically review means, so what are the strategy while searching? You need to search for the parameter. Okay, that parameter which are applicable for your research. You are going to search according to the parameter. Keywords and the search term to be used. If there is any keywords that is associated with your resource and search term, you can use while searching the literature. Okay, database and search engine to be used. Criteria for selection of relevant and useful study, and you need to discuss this with your colleague and tutor if possible. Okay, it is before the collection of the literature. Okay, so how you can collect the relevant literature? If you collect the relevant literature, then again you have to review that relevant literature based on the different criteria. Yes, you need to be clear on that part. First you need to collect. While collecting, you can use the search term, keywords, parameter. Okay, you can search the different database and search engine that might give you certain literature related to your topic. Okay, and criteria for selection of relevant and useful study, and you need to discuss if possible. Okay, you need to discuss with your colleague and tutor about the literature that we have searched. If you have any question, you can ask me. Okay, I will move, and in any step, if you have any question, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. So you will need to how to content of the review. Okay, include the key academic theories. Okay, that we have discussed previously. That 3 type of review you can review in that way also. Okay, that will eventually come here also, and demonstrate the current knowledge of area. You will need to use clear referencing for the reader to find the original cited publication. Acknowledge the research of other while you review the content. Okay, most important part is acknowledge the research for other. So what happens if we do not acknowledge the research for other? Any circumstances that would arise? Do you know what will happen if you just write the content for others, and if you do not acknowledge that research? So what will happen? That will lead to plagiarism. Okay, so while your research will be put on the Turnitin, if that happens, then overall authenticity of your research will be degraded down. Okay, it indicate you have copied the content or copied the valid research from certain other content that has been already published. Okay, so we need to give credit to other researchers for their content. So for that, we need to acknowledge the research. For that, you need to use the citation and references. Okay, as much as possible. Critical review. The key purpose of the critical review is to further refine the research question and objective. Okay, while you review the literature, okay, while you review the literature, I already told you research is an iterative process. If you move forward, you explore more of the method, more of the technique, and so on. So you again refine the research question, research objective, aims, and so on, so that it will be clear for you and it will be easy to achieve within that allocated period of time. Okay, so the refinement can be possible uh, if you review the literature critically. Okay, the key purpose of reviewing the literature critically is to further refine the research question and objective. So that refinement might include suppose you have formulated 5 research questions, and if you think that only the 3 of them can be formulated within the allocated period of time, then you can remove the 2. Again, if certain questions that you have formulated, if you can suppose you have just written on what is the percentage of students that are involved on online class, if that is the simple question, then again you want to know a certain question that might be references what is the absent percentage. Okay, you can review from the percentage of students that are not present, or some other fact, how the student are involved on online classes, or further that kind of research question that is can be implicable for your research. Okay, refinement is certain improvement. Okay, to discover the recommendation for the further research. Okay, you can discover the recommendation for the further research. So as I mentioned, when you write the limitation and recommendation, that is not for you, that is for other researcher also. Okay, for other researcher, they will start their research from your research end. Okay, when you have end certain thing, and if you further open the door for other researcher, okay, then other researcher will follow the path from that point. Okay, to avoid repeating work already undertaken, that is the main thing. Okay, we cannot say something that has been explored previously as our own work. Okay, so for that also we can review the literature. We should review the critically review the literature to provide the insight into the strategy and the technique appropriate to your research objective. Okay, so certain most method, strategy, technique that can be applicable for your research, you can get certain idea from that previous research. Adapting the critical perspective. So how can what are the skills that is necessary to adapt the critical perspective? As we have already discussed, there is no any specific method. These are some of the technique that you can use. Okay, the most important skills are the capacity to evaluate what you read and the capacity to relate what you read to other information. Okay, evaluation, what you read, and relate. Okay, evaluate and relate are the two important skills. If you just read, and if you cannot relate your content, relate of the content of that literature with your research, then that is meaningless. Okay, so you have to evaluate, the capacity to evaluate what you read, the capacity to relate what you read to other information. You have to relate, evaluate, and relate. These are the most important skills that you need to implement while reviewing the literature critically. And what is the skills for effective reading? Quick look, title, abstract, introduction, that is the thematic review. I've already said, and based on that thematic review, you note down the key points, summarize the uh, overall research that you have read, and comparing and contrasting, if any, comparing and contrasting with the different literature. Suppose certain method that has been applied in the two contexts. Okay, so you can compare the findings, or you can contrast the findings, method, theory, or any aspect of the two or more research. Okay, you can do that part also. That will provide you the insight what you need to do. Okay, we are focusing on that part also. What you need to do, you are going to generate that thing. Okay, and certain confusion that you have also will be clear while reviewing the literature. While selecting the title or topic, you might do the superficial literature review, but when you review or when you write the chapter 3, critically review the related literature and certain part of the introduction, then you need to review the literature in depth. Okay, in depth review should be needed, and that depth should be in terms of your need. Okay, what you need. So please, can you read this slide? You need to ask yourself what you need to ask. अहिले पर्दैन किन यसको So you need to ask this question. Okay. So you need to ask certain questions. The essential one is why I am reading this. Okay, what is the author trying to do in writing this? How convincing is this? And what use can I make of this reading? Okay, you need to ask this question to yourself while reviewing. Okay, so that it will generate a meaningful reading for that literature. Okay, we are not wasting time and your report. So if you set these certain questions on your mind. So any confusion in this point? No? Okay. So while reviewing the content of the literature review, is it critical or not? You can check from this some of the criteria or parameter. Okay. So please read this also. Content of the literature and is it critical or not? Okay. Based on focusing on content and whether you review it critically or not. So can you see in left, it's simply the content of the literature, and in right, it is critical or not. Okay. Does it relate to the research question? And while you critically review, have you shown how your research question linked to the previous research? Okay. Have you covered most relevant theory? Have you assessed the positive or negative of the previous researches? Okay. And have you included the most relevant and significant literature? Have you been objective? Objective means you are more focused on your research. Okay. Do not use the subjective judgment, that is the certain feelings, opinion, or perception on this particular context. In this literature review, you just you need to be objective. That means you need to focus more on your research. Okay, more on the research rather than diverting from that core context of your research. Okay, only focusing that. If it related, it is okay. If you can find the positive and negative, it's okay. You need not to be in present between positive and negative. You need not to fall between positive and negative. You should be either assist the positive part, or you need to assist other positive negative part, or you can find the linkage to previous research, or you do not find the research question linked to previous research. You need to be more objective. Okay. And left, is your literature up to date, and is it reference? Okay, whether it has been referenced by other research or not. Okay, so that the validity of the research can be justifiable. Justify why new research is required. Clearly distinguished fact and opinion. Justify why new research is required. Okay, so these are the certain things you while reviewing the literature, whether you review the literature critically or not. If you review the literature from this perspective, okay, you think you need to understand that you are reviewing the literature critically. Okay. Key to the critical literature is you need to demonstrate that you have read, understand, and evaluate your material. So in chapter third, in chapter 3, when you write the critically review the literature, you have to demonstrate. Okay, you have to demonstrate that you have read, understand, and evaluate the material. You have to make clear connection to your research objective. Means the objective that you have formulated, you have already known the problem statement that you have formulated is related with your previous researches. Yes, so based on that previous research, you are going to explore certain new things. Okay, so that new things that you are going to explore and the literature that you have searched should be interrelated, because you are fulfilling the gap that exists on the previous resources. Okay, so you have to make the clear connection to your research objective, the literature that you have searched, because you need to focus that the literature that I have taken references will contribute to achieve my research objective. That is only the case. Means they should be interrelated. Recording the literature. How do you are going to record the literature? You need to make notes for each item you read. Okay, the reference detail, brief summary of the content, and supplementary information. So suppose while writing the chapter literature review, okay, now we are moving on that part. While writing the chapter critically review the literature, or literature review only, you can write the literature review only. You need to write the content from the previous literature, okay, previous researches. So while copying that content or certain thing, you need to first copy the brief summary of the content. You are going to take the reference of brief summary of the content. Okay, can you see the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, recording the literature. Okay, we are on this slide recording the literature. And what you need to do, you need to make notes for each of the item you read. Okay, because you need to put that content while writing the proposal, so you need to make that note. So while recording the literature, what you need to do, you need to take the referencing detail. Okay, you can download it, and while in referencing style, we follow the APA standard. Okay, APA style to cite the references or cite the content that has been published on previous literature. And while referencing, okay, you copy the reference, and what you need to post, you need to write the brief summary of the content and cite the source. Okay, you need to cite the source. Brief summary of the content, cite the source. Another literature, brief summary of the content, cite the source. And if there is any supplementary information that is needed, means from where you have taken, okay, what is the implication for that research on your context. If there is any certain information, you can provide on the literature review. So recording the literature, referencing detail means author, your publication, you need to follow the APA style. Okay, and brief summary, while taking the brief summary, you can copy the content of the abstract that has been published on that literature or journal or article. Okay, that abstract will provide you overall summary of the research, the method that has been implemented, the problem that the research has solved. Okay, and the conclusion, findings, all of them are indicated on the abstract part. Yes, so you can take the brief summary from abstract of that literature. You copy the abstract, cite the source. Okay, and if there is any supplementary information that is needed, then you can provide like the key course, where you have found it, your comments, when you consulted it, or something like that. The supplementary information needed for that content. Okay, to make it more validate, you can provide the thing. And while reviewing the literature, writing the literature review content part. Okay, if you are focusing on the same content means all of them are all 5 resources that focus on the IIT based healthcare system or something like that. And if they use the same method and technique but in different contexts, you can take the brief summary from overall these 3 to 5 papers and include on one paragraph. Okay, and while changing the paragraph, you can change based on the context or based on the scenario or based on the method. Anything that changes, you can change the paragraph. If you focus on the similar content, okay, if that is focus on the thematic review, overall theme of the project or the literature are same or similar, then you can use the same paragraph. And again, you can move on the second paragraph, and any theoretical aspect that you need to cover, then again you have to write the references or content from that. literature and cite that content. Okay, whatever you need to cite it. And when you need to change the paragraph, when the context will be changed, you need to change the paragraph. It's okay while writing. Okay, where I am focusing on while you prepare the proposal also, how to prepare that literature review section. Can you see this second slide? Recording the literature, brief summary, supplementary information. Are you able to see the slide?
Yes, sir.
So parallelism, okay, parallelism. There are 4 common forms of parallelism that you need to focus. Okay, while reviewing the literature, this is the most common forms of parallelism that's mostly occur, and you need to avoid this as much as possible. Okay, stealing the material from another source, if okay, that also is a parallelism. Another is submitting material written by another. Okay, copying material without the quotation mark, paraphrasing the material without documentation. Means you are just writing the other content in your own word, but you are saying overall theme will indicate the same, but you are saying you have done by yourself without any references or documentation. If you do it that way, then that will act as a parallelism. So as far as possible, we need to avoid this. Okay, we need to avoid this. You can for avoidance, we use the citation, we use the references, we give credit to the previous resources. These are the common forms to avoid the parallelism. Okay, you need to avoid this. So I think this was for the literature review, critically review the literature. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. Tomorrow we'll discuss about the literature that you have searched. Okay, you can please post me the link or the file that you have selected for your references. Okay, you can post or share with me, and I will authenticate, or I will help you to authenticate whether that literature will be good source of information for you or not, or whether you can trust that literature or not. Okay, you can discuss that part with me also. So tomorrow class will discuss about the literature that you have sourced for selection of the title or writing the objective or any other further part. Okay, we'll discuss on that part. So up to this point, if you have any confusion, please let me know. Up to this point. Are you clear while reviewing the literature?
Yes, sir.
So tomorrow we'll continue. Okay, we'll discuss on the literature that you have selected. Okay, we'll discuss on the literature that you have selected or sourced while generating the idea regarding the research topic or formulating your research question and objective if you have any. Okay, so we'll discuss, and I'll show one example how to review a literature. Okay, by searching for the literature. Okay, based on the paper, article, journal that you have provided to me. Okay, so that will be applicable for you, and it will be an example for other also. Okay, so if you have not searched for any literature right now, you have just searched the internet or YouTube or something like that. Now you have to search the authenticate source of information. Okay, authenticate source means you need to search either primary literature or secondary, okay, journal or thesis or anything like that. You need to focus on that part. Okay, okay, so tomorrow we'll discuss on the literature part, and next day we'll start studying the research methodology. Okay, or some example. Okay, we also in this week we'll start the research method part, and next week we'll complete the research methodology, and the final week we'll complete how to prepare the proposal and other content that is necessary for your research proposal. Okay, okay, so we'll
Yes, sir.
course tomorrow. I'm ending this meeting.